This is a very dark story, friends. A story that comes from a forgotten corner of America, from an old dormitory whose walls hold more secrets than any history book ever could. Let me ask you something. What would you do if curiosity pushed you too far? If it led you to the edge of common sense, forced you to stare into a mirror, and made you whisper a name that was never meant to be spoken? Prepare yourselves, because today we're walking down the dusty corridors of a university in Ohio to uncover why 3 college students lost their lives, all because of a foolish dare connected to an urban legend known alias Salam, Bloody Mary. And trust me, what happened after they spoke those 3 words will crawl under your skin and stay there. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Moonlight Mysteries. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe, especially those of you watching this alone in your room at night. The story I'm about to tell you made me hesitate before standing too close to a mirror in my own home.
Students often said that when you passed by them late at night, your reflection didn't feel like it was copying you. It felt like it was watching. And this is where the legend comes in. A story passed down year after year by upperclassmen, usually told with laughter, usually dismissed as nonsense. The legend of Bloody Mary. Stand in front of a mirror, turn off the lights, say her name 3 times. Nothing happens, unless it does. Jack thought it was stupid. Peter thought it was funny. Eden didn't believe in ghosts at all. And that combination, skepticism, curiosity, and arrogance, is exactly how tragedies begin. Jack, Peter, and Eden were inseparable. They lived on the same floor, in the same aging dormitory, and somehow, despite being very different people, their personalities fit together perfectly. Jack was the logical one, skeptical, grounded, the kind of guy who needed facts, not feelings. Peter was the opposite, always joking, always laughing, the first to break tension and the last to take anything seriously. And then there was Eden, quiet, observant, the one who spoke the least but listened the most. What the others didn't fully realize was that Eden had a deep fascination with the supernatural, old legends, forgotten rituals, ancient stories that refused to stay buried. While Jack dismissed those things as nonsense and Peter mocked them outright, Eden spent his nights scrolling through obscure forums, archived campus records, and half-forgotten student blogs. Especially the dormitory they lived in. That night in Ohio was unnaturally quiet. Outside, rain poured down relentlessly, hammering against the windows and roof, creating a constant heavy rhythm that somehow made the inside of the dorm feel even more silent. The hallways were empty. Too empty. They had just finished their final exams, a brutal stretch of sleepless nights and mounting pressure, and for the first time in weeks, they could finally breathe. So they gathered in Jack's room. Snacks covered the desk, empty energy drink cans lined the windowsill. Their conversation drifted lazily from one topic to another: summer plans, road trips, internships, anything that felt lighter than the weeks they'd just survived. Until, inevitably, the conversation turned dark. Ghost stories, urban legends, the kinds of rumors that get passed down from one generation of students to the next, always whispered, always half joking, always half serious. And like clockwork, one name came up: Bloody Mary. A woman said to appear if her name was spoken 3 times in front of a mirror, especially late at night. Especially in old buildings, especially when the halls were quiet enough to hear your own breathing. Peter didn't even try to hide his reaction. He burst out laughing. "Come on," he said, shaking his head. "It's 2015. People seriously still believe this kindergarten-level nonsense?" He grabbed another handful of potato chips, chewing loudly. "That story's just a scare tactic," Peter continued. "Something seniors made up to keep freshmen from wandering the dorms at night. Bloody Mary isn't real. It's fiction, always has been." Jack nodded along. Eden didn't. He stayed quiet. And as the rain continued to fall outside, Eden finally spoke, his voice calm, almost casual. "Then why," he asked, "do the oldest dorms have more mirrors than any other building on campus?" The room went silent, and for the first time that night, no one laughed. But Eden's reaction was different. The one who usually stayed silent, simply observing, suddenly looked alive. His eyes reflected something between excitement and fear. And when he finally spoke, his voice dropped into a near whisper, as if he was afraid someone might be listening from the other side of the door. "But what if we actually try it?" Eden said. "I mean, wouldn't that be kind of incredible?" Jack and Peter exchanged glances. Eden continued, his words slow and deliberate.
"They say if you call her at 3 in the morning in an old dorm like this, the ritual is stronger, much stronger." There was a pause. "And if nothing happens," Eden added quietly, "at least we'll have a story to tell when we're on vacation." For reasons none of them could explain, Eden looked almost obsessed, like the idea had taken root somewhere deep inside him, an idea that should never have been entertained. Jack tried to stay rational, but Alayha Salam, Pidamp, and Eden began quietly arguing over whether the legend had any truth to it. Something inside Jack shifted. He raised an eyebrow, set his chips down on the desk, and smirked. "All right," Jack said. "If it's just a story, then it'll stay a story." He leaned forward. "We're college students. We're supposed to prove things, not just believe or dismiss them blindly." Jack paused, then delivered the challenge. "Why don't we test it ourselves? Right now?" The room went quiet. 3 pairs of eyes met. And in that moment, without fully understanding why, they all agreed. They didn't do it because they were fearless. They did it because, deep down, they truly believed nothing would happen. None of them genuinely thought a mythical entity could step out of a mirror and face them. That false sense of certainty made the decision easy. They set an alarm for 2:57 a.m., giving themselves exactly 3 minutes to reach the communal bathroom at the far end of the dormitory, a place known among students, Alayhi Salam, the darkest and least used part of the building. At 2:57 a.m. sharp, the alarm let out a soft, shrill sound, slicing through the oppressive silence of the night. The 3 friends slipped out of Jack's room, quietly, carefully. They moved down the hallway on the tips of their toes, the corridor stretching out before them like it had no end. Above them, fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, casting long, shifting shadows that danced along the walls in unsettling patterns. With every step, the air felt heavier, denser, almost as if the dormitory itself was pressing down on them, as if the building was silently urging them to turn back, to abandon the foolish, dangerous plan they had already agreed to. But they kept walking, straight toward the mirror. They finally reached the communal bathroom. It was old, uncomfortably old.
The tiles were dull and discolored, and the sharp smell of chlorine mixed with damp air burned their noses the moment they stepped inside. The kind of smell that never truly goes away, no matter how many times the room is cleaned.
They closed the door behind them. Then, without another word, they turned off the lights. Total darkness swallowed the room. In the silence, each of them could hear their own heartbeat, loud, uneven, and impossible to ignore. The only source of light came from a single small candle they had brought with them, placed carefully on the stained surface of one of the sinks. Its weak orange glow barely illuminated their faces in the mirror, just enough to see themselves. The mirror was massive. It stretched across nearly the entire wall above 3 sinks, making it impossible to avoid. Its surface looked ancient, aged beyond repair, with visible cracks spidering out from the lower right corner, as if it had once been dropped or struck by something with tremendous force. The air inside the bathroom was freezing, far colder than the hallway outside, colder than the rain-soaked night beyond the walls. The sudden chill sent a shiver through Jack's body. For the first time that night, the most skeptical among them felt genuine unease creeping into his chest. Jack stood at the front. Peter was beside him, tense and unusually quiet. Behind them stood Eden, holding a flashlight that remained turned off, just in case. All three stared at their reflections. Their faces looked pale, unfamiliar, distorted by the candle's flickering light. Above them, shadows danced along the high, dirty ceiling, stretching and twisting in ways that made it hard to tell what was real and what was just fear. The time was 3 a.m. Jack's heart was pounding now. His hands trembled slightly as he swallowed. But he had to prove it, had to show that this was nothing more than a myth. So he steadied himself. Forcing a half-joking tone into his voice, though the fear beneath it was impossible to hide, Jack spoke the words. Slowly, clearly, into the mirror. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary. The candle flickered, and the mirror seemed to breathe. For several long seconds that felt stretched far beyond what they should have been, nothing happened. The candle continued to burn steadily. The mirror remained dull and lifeless. Only their three faces stared back at them. Peter let out a loud laugh, sharp, relieved, victorious, shattering the tension that had been hanging in the air. "See," he said, already turning away. "I told you, total waste of time. Bloody Mary is just fiction." He reached for the doorknob, eager to escape the freezing bathroom.
"Let's go back to sleep," Peter continued casually. "Tomorrow we'll have a funny story about how we stayed up past midnight hunting for a ghost that doesn't exist." Just as Peter's hand touched the door, everything stopped. Eden spoke. His voice was barely above a whisper, almost drowned out by the heavy rain pounding outside. But it was enough. "Guys," Eden said softly, "the mirror, it just fogged up on its own." There was no joking in his voice, only fear, pure, unfiltered. Jack and Peter froze. Slowly, very slowly, they turned back toward the mirror. And Eden was right. The massive mirror was no longer clear. Right at its center, directly behind their reflections, a thick white fog was beginning to spread, creeping outward like breath against cold glass. But that made no sense. The air in the room was freezing. The candle produced no steam. No one had breathed close enough to the glass to cause condensation. And yet, the fog continued to grow. Then the reflections changed. Jack's reflection began to smile. A wide, unnatural grin stretched across the face in the mirror, revealing too many teeth. Jack's real face, standing just inches away, remained frozen in shock, lips sealed tight. That smile was not his. It felt wrong, twisted, filled with something cold and hateful and deeply malicious. Panic surged through them. Before anyone could scream, the bathroom lights suddenly flicked on by themselves. A loud electrical hum filled the room. A harsh white light erased every shadow. But instead of relief, it revealed something far worse.
In the mirror, behind them, something was standing there. Something that should not exist. A woman, tall, unnaturally thin. Her hair was impossibly long, black and dripping wet, clinging to her pale face like strands of decay. Her skin was corpse white, the color of something that had been buried far too long. And her eyes glowed a burning red. They stared directly at the three of them, not from the room, but from inside the mirror, like the glass was no longer a reflection, but a window, and whatever stood on the other side was finally looking back. All three of them tried to scream, but the sound died in their throats. Instinct took over. They ran. They bolted out of the bathroom at full speed, not daring to look back even once. They didn't stop until they reached Jack's room. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked into place. And there on the floor they collapsed, huddled together, shaking, gasping for air,
desperately trying to convince themselves that what they had just seen was nothing more than a shared hallucination. Lack of sleep, fear, imagination running wild. Anything but the truth. Unfortunately, from that night on, their lives never returned to normal. Because they hadn't imagined anything. They had called something real. And Bloody Mary, the infamous Ohio legend, had answered. She had crossed over. And she had no intention of leaving after being invited into their world. The terror didn't come all at once. It came slowly, quietly. It slipped into their everyday lives and infected each of them, one by one, in deeply personal and devastating ways. Jack, the logical one, was the first to change. Every morning, without fail, he woke up with thin red scratches on his neck. They looked like claw marks. Sharp, precise, always just beneath his jawline. They never hurt, but they were always there. By late afternoon, the marks would fade away, only to reappear the next morning. Jack stopped sleeping. He became terrified of what might be happening to him when he lost consciousness at night. And eventually, he covered every mirror in his room. He couldn't stand the idea of seeing his own reflection anymore. Peter, the skeptic, the one who used to laugh, was next. His laughter disappeared. In its place came constant fear. Peter began hearing whispers. A woman's voice. Soft, intimate, calling his name. Peter. It only happened near mirrors fogged with steam, usually after a hot shower.
The voice sounded like it was coming from inside the glass. A lysolam if someone were trapped there, waiting, begging him to let her out. Peter became paranoid. Bathroom trips often ended with him screaming hysterically, convinced someone was standing just inches away, hidden behind the reflection. But the worst changes happened to Eden. Remember, Eden was the one most fascinated by the legend, and Bloody Mary seemed to know that. Eden's behavior became deeply disturbing. Jack and Peter would often find him standing alone in the dorm hallway or inside his room, staring at his reflection without blinking, sometimes for hours. A lysolam if he were holding a silent conversation with the mirror itself. Whenever they tried to approach him, they heard Eden whispering softly to the glass. "She says I'm the prettiest," Eden murmured. "She says I'm allowed to see her real face." Those words chilled them to the bone. It was a lysolam if Bloody Mary was seeping into Eden's mind through reflections, convincing him that he was special, chosen, breaking their friendship apart through slow, cruel psychological manipulation. But the most terrifying sign of all was something they experienced together, every single night, without exception. At exactly 3 a.m., all three of their phones would go off at the same time. Same alarm sound, same moment. None of them had ever set an alarm. And when they picked up their phones, screens glowing in the darkness, there was always the same notification. One message, impossible to delete. Look at the mirror. The breaking point came on a quiet autumn morning. The entire dormitory was thrown into chaos when a cleaning staff member began screaming hysterically. Students rushed into the hallway. Campus security was called. And inside the communal bathroom, the very same bathroom where the ritual had taken place, they found Jack, the logical one, the skeptic, the one who wanted to prove the legend wrong. Jack was lying on the cold, tiled floor, lifeless. His face was frozen in an expression of pure, unimaginable terror, his eyes wide open, staring up at the ceiling. A lysolam if he had witnessed something the human mind was never meant to comprehend. Above him, on the large cracked mirror over the sink, a message had been written, not in paint, not in ink, but in thick, dark red blood that carried a metallic stench. Mary was here. The blood was not Jack's. There were no open wounds on his body. Yet the message was unmistakable, a mark of ownership. Jack was gone, becoming the first confirmed victim of the mirror curse they had unleashed into the real world through reckless curiosity. Peter's fate was even more disturbing and far more mysterious. That same night, Peter vanished. No CCTV footage ever showed him leaving the building. No witnesses saw him exit the dormitory. It was as if he had simply been erased. The only thing left behind was the mirror in his dorm room, a mirror that had once been perfectly normal. Now it was cracked straight across the glass, curving unnaturally into the shape of a wide, grotesque smile, as if the mirror itself was laughing at Peter's disappearance. Eden was the only one who remained, but he could hardly be called a survivor. Eden was eventually admitted to a psychiatric hospital outside the city, placed in an isolation room due to his uncontrollable behavior. Every time a doctor or nurse approached him, whether to give medication or perform a routine check, Eden would scream hysterically. He clawed at his own face. He refused to open his eyes. Always. When asked why, his answer was horrifyingly consistent. Because in every reflective surface, windows, dark phone screens, even the polished surface of a metal spoon, Eden saw someone standing directly behind him, a woman, with long hair and glowing red eyes, the same woman they had summoned, the same woman who never stopped whispering into his ear, even inside the hospital walls. "Thank you for calling me, sweetheart," she murmured. "We'll be together forever." The legend at that Ohio campus is still alive today. Senior students no longer tell this story as a myth. They don't need to. It's campus history now. Painful. Real. When freshmen ask about Bloody Mary, the seniors don't explain. They simply point toward the bathroom at the end of the hallway, and they always give the same warning. Never, under any circumstances, call Bloody Mary in front of a mirror, especially at the witching hour, because once she comes, she never leaves. The terror still lingers in that old dormitory, waiting, watching, for the next person brave or foolish enough to challenge her existence. Pretty chilling, right? All of this, just because of one reckless challenge fueled by skepticism and curiosity. It's a reminder that some things in this world are better left as legends, untouched, unprovoked. So tell me, have you ever had a strange or terrifying experience involving mirrors or urban legends? Let me know in the comments. And if you were Jack, what would you have done after seeing your reflection smile back at you? If you enjoyed this kind of mystery and horror storytelling, make sure to like the video. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future stories that will keep you up at night. Until next time, and remember, never stare into a mirror for too long, especially at 3 in the morning.